and welcome to this week's live edition of Real Talk, Real Stories. My name is Advita Patel, and I am one of the co-founders of the Asian Comms Network. And today I am joined by the wonderful Nikki Sehgal, who is one of our ACN board advisors. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you, Advita, for having me.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Brilliant. If you're watching us live, then please feel free to say hello in the chat and let us know where you have come from or where you're tuning in from. And if you're watching us on replay, and then please feel free to add your question to the comments, even if you are watching us back, and we'll make sure we get back to you as well. So, Nikki, please feel free to say a quick introduction for those folks who haven't met you before or don't know what you do.
Lovely. So yeah, I'm Nikki Sehgal. I'm currently the General Manager of Media for All, also known as MIFA. MIFA is a not-for-profit social enterprise which supports Black, Asian and ethnic minorities working in the UK media and advertising industry. And in addition to that, I do quite a lot of voluntary freelance work as well. So I've worked on Unseen Festival, which is the first festival of creativity, a new festival this year within media marketing. I'm actually working on my third TEDx. This one is now TEDx Richmond. We have a launch event tomorrow actually, and the live event will be in January. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. So what do you do on the TEDx stuff? Are you one of the organisers? You kind of support?
Yeah. So I'm one of the organisers, but prehistorically I worked with TEDx Ladbroke Grove. So I was on the branding and comms team. And then with TEDx Richmond, I'm the events and comms co-lead.
Oh, amazing. Oh, I love that. We're going to talk a little bit about TEDx because one of the questions I often get asked with people who've got like their vision board is they often have TEDx or TED Talk on there as kind of like the creme de la creme of speaking. So I'm going to ask later on, Nikki, if that's okay with you, give you advance warning on some top tips that you could share with people who have got an ambition to be on a TED Talk in the future. But before we get into that, would you be able to kind of give us a little bit of background on what drew you into the career that you're in today? Like, what was your kind of inspiration overall?
I know one of the questions was, about early moments and how I actually got here. I think when I was in primary school, I always wanted to be a broadcast journalist, and then really interested in media marketing throughout school, high school, university, etc. And then when I was at university, I volunteered for quite a few of the ERGs and the societies, etc. I actually studied media and cultural studies and sociology at uni. So very early on, I kind of knew what career path I wanted to go down. And then my first job out of uni, I worked at Fox in broadcasting and then digital operations, which wasn't quite for me, but it's always good, I think, to try out things that you think you might like, but actually you don't, because then it gives you more of a laser focus on what area that you want to the path that you want to fulfill. And then throughout that period after, in terms of my roles, it was always like within marketing, events, comms. Like I said, I've had voluntary roles for the last 15 years in tandem with my full-time role, full-time roles, just because I love doing extracurricular stuff, but also it just gives me a chance to bolster up my skills, meet new people, but also, be a part of things that I wouldn't necessarily be a part of if I wasn't doing that in my day job. And essentially, I just, I've always loved like storytelling, but also shaping them. So, you can really do that through like TEDx and all the other events that I've done as well.
Love that. That's amazing. So when you look back on your career to date, what were the kind of early moments that shaped how you show up at work?
I think it's just the power of being curious and always saying yes. When I used to see job posts or even voluntary posts, sometimes there was a niggle in the back of my head saying, you don't have all the skills or prerequisite skills to actually fulfill this role. But actually, I just turned it on its head and thought, what can I bring to the table? What are my transferable skills? But also, what can I learn? And I think having that attitude, I gained so much experience through my voluntary roles, and I didn't see them as, sometimes you get to a point where, like, I'm doing so much voluntary stuff, it's not paid. But actually looking back, I really value all the work that I've done, because essentially it got me to where I am now with my current role. Because I didn't have a marketing focused degree or events focused degree, etc. So I've gained that experience through doing voluntary roles, which actually got me noticed in my full-time roles, because I had that experience out of work. And I think just shaping your approach differently really helps you do that.
Yeah. And when you talk about shaping your approach a bit differently, like what were, I suppose, 2 or 3 things that you did? So if someone's kind of watching right now and is kind of feeling a bit stuck or not quite sure about whether the career they've chosen is the right career for them, or whatever, you're at a crossroads, what are your kind of top tips or advice you would share to be visible, be seen, and to be given those opportunities that have been shared with you over your career?
I think, we talk a lot about personal branding these days, building your confidence and being visible. But actually, I know that's really important, but sometimes, for instance, I consider myself to be more introverted than extroverted. But it's just being able to have that quiet confidence, even to speak up in certain rooms when you have ideas to share, because you don't know, how valuable they might be to other people, but also who's listening. And then just, I think a lot of it is observing and watching and seeing what's missing and how you can contribute to that. And seeing different strategies and different things that might work for a particular project, for instance, that someone hasn't thought of, that hasn't contributed. I think no matter what your seniority or hierarchy is at work, just always in the back of your mind, just to have that that knowledge that you are valuable, what you think, and your ideas are valuable, and you don't know where you'll get by contributing that. So, don't hold back from that instance. And then in terms of, say, if you're working in a particular industry that you're not really liking at the moment, just think about the transferable skills that you can bring to the next job that you want to go down, or even just there might be different functions or different departments within your company that you really want to work in. Just asking the senior leadership team, perhaps you can shadow them, or you can spend the day, working in that particular department, or even just volunteering in different departments, whether that's at events or comms, etc. I think if you have that willingness to learn and you're open about it and knowing who to speak to, that really, really helps. But always just put yourself out there, just because people won't know that you're open to, wanting to work in different areas or wanting to have that experience.
Yeah. No, and that's really sound advice. And it's really interesting that you spoke about introvert and extrovert and how we show up in situation stuff. And I have had, I do a lot of work around confidence, and I've had many folks come to me and say, I'm more introverted or a bit quieter, and I'm not quite sure how I can share my voice amongst all these kind of louder voices, or folks who are more comfortable in putting their hand up and taking those opportunities. How do I navigate through that and show up as genuinely as I can, right, without having to be somebody else or pretending to be someone else? And I think the advice that you've shared there is really sound in how you can still be that authentic self without feeling mimicking someone.
Yeah, also just figuring out different modes of communication that work for you. Like, what do you feel comfortable in? Do you feel comfortable stepping into a room, networking, and speaking to people that you don't know? Or do you feel comfortable writing? Perhaps you could write a LinkedIn post or an article, or just creating spaces with other people. Either they're like-minded, or people that you want to learn from or grow from, and you want to get to know. Just creating those opportunities rather than being in a room with loads of people. Like, what do you feel more comfortable in sharing? Again, you can flex your different muscles depending on what level of the scale you're on.
Exactly. It's finding your way, right? A way where you can show up in a way that you feel comfortable with, but also giving you that extra bit of stretch as well. Because
definitely,
you speak about, I'm sure you speak about this frequently with TED Talk people as well. Like, you often have to put yourself in a space of discomfort sometimes to allow that growth. But you do have to find a method or a channel that you can comfortably use to raise your visibility and personal brand as well. So it's adapting and adopting, and not breaking, right? A really good friend of mine, Black, says that all the time. Like, it's not about breaking, it's about bending and adjusting.
Yeah, for sure.
To do that. Talking about masking or, mimicking or doing something that you're not comfortable with, code switching is a big topic within the underrepresented and underestimated folks. Have you ever felt that you've had to kind of code switch or mask your personality to fit in any way, either work or professionally or personally?
I'd say for me, my first role, I didn't realize that I was, the only person of color until after, because I think just wasn't aware of what was going on, and I was so, fresh out of university, wanting to learn, just very eager to be in that company. It's only on reflection that I realized actually that's probably why I felt uncomfortable and felt why I couldn't speak up. But I think for the code switching, from my perspective and my personal experience, is more so from the introversion perspective rather than because of the color of my skin or because I'm a brown woman. I've been in various different scenarios and environments where there was a lot of loud, brash, extroverted people, and I found that really difficult to navigate. But I feel like now, because of my line of work, and it's very important to build relationships, speak to people, and actually a lot of stakeholder management as well. I've learned to shape myself in a way that I'm comfortable to speak to people, but know that when my energy is down, that you pull back a little bit, you recharge, etc. But I've spoken to loads of people about this code switching, and I've seen it as well. But personally, I don't feel like I've ever had to, because of the roles that I've had. It's only on reflection that I realized that, yes, very early on in my career I had to, but I think I've been very selective with where I work.
Yeah, and you hit the nail there, because when you are, I always say to folks that introversion and extroversion is very interchangeable depending on the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
So, you may be more extroverted, I suppose, in a space where you feel more comfortable and belonging, and you may feel yourself pulling back or being more introverted in a space where you don't quite belong, or you feel that you are included, right? So it's really important. I always say, and to your point, and you said it there, like, you've been quite selective about the organizations that you gift your skills to, and the space where you're allowed to be who you need to be and do it in a way where you're seen, heard, and brought into conversations, right? So you've been very conscious of that. I think if you're watching and you're listening to this conversation and you feel that you're not able to contribute or add value in the way that you would like to, then my advice is to sense check that environment around you, to see where your energy is being pulled. Where are you being excluded? Why why is that feeling quite, that pit of the stomach feeling that I'm not feeling I'm getting valued in the way I want to, and have a clear understanding about whether it's the environment that's causing you to feel anxious or more introverted or quieter, or is it that your energy is being pulled elsewhere? Like, it's really important to think about that as well. So really, really good points there, Nikki, about mindful.
Yeah, I think on the flip side of that as well, sometimes we go into environments feeling anxious, feeling, a lack of confidence, a lack of self-esteem. And sometimes it's not the environment that is making us feel like that. It's actually, us within our own minds. And I think being able to discern the difference of those environments really helpful, because you might be actually almost like passing up opportunities, for instance, thinking that actually it's the environment and it's the people, but actually it's yourself, and it's learning how to almost like calm your own mind, calm your own nervous system, to know that actually, yes, I do belong, yes, I can contribute, yes, I do feel confident enough to. And I guess that comes back to just having a growth mindset, but also just flipping it on his head and thinking positively, as opposed to shunning yourself from that particular opportunity.
Yeah, we can be our biggest barrier, right?
Definitely.
That we tell ourselves based on lived experience, right? And previous experience. Because if you've worked in quite a toxic environment previously where you have been shunned and disregarded or excluded, you're building up this kind of belief that, this defense mechanism that has backed up your belief that you don't belong. So when you go into the next workplace, the people around you may be very open and accepting, but because you've had this past experience, your narrative in your head is kind of telling you that you don't belong or you shouldn't trust as easy. So we end up becoming our worst enemy.
I think, I think it's really helpful to be aware of that. So when you are in a different scenario, or if you are transitioning to a new role, knowing that this is how I felt here, these are the circumstances I was in, and this is what happened. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be this, your next story. But just knowing that actually, just learning how to deal with that. It might be, through speaking to someone, through therapy, coaching, counseling, whatever that might be. But I think it's really helpful to be aware of that, so you're not taking that into your next role, because again, you might be, not be showing up as your best self because of that past experience.
Yeah. And again, those tips that you just shared there about the mentoring, the coaching, counseling and therapy, depending on the triggers that you experience, and having a network. This is one of the reasons that Azana, Shioni, and I decided to set up the Asian Comms Network, to build a community or a space where people can come into the network and have a conversation around issues that they have familiarity with. That South Asian, East Asian communication, marketing, journalists, creatives may have in common compared to other people from other lived experiences and backgrounds. So it is important, very important to note that talk to others around you, open up some of your fears that you might be facing, some of the challenges that you think may be coming your way, and how to address them. So do look into that. And if you want to find out more about the Asian Comms Network, we'll leave all the details in the comments as well. So talking about having a community and a network, during your career, who or what has inspired you to continue doing what you're doing? Has there been people that you've looked up to in the past and gone that they really inspired me to keep on going and keep on kind of, pushing forward?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I think my inspiration always comes from people that use their platforms to lift others, whether that's, your colleagues, your mentors, or community leaders. I'm really lucky because the boss that I've got now, incredibly supportive. I consider him to be my mentor as well. It's really important when you have a boss for them to treat you like an adult, to give you that autonomy to lead in the way that you want to, so you can build yourself up, build your skills up, develop your leadership skills as well. And in terms of mentors, I'm sure you've heard this kind of concept, and others maybe that are listening in, but building your board of directors. So building different, so building your board of directors, but bringing different voices, experiences to that table. So reaching out to different types of people in different industries. You could be mentoring with them once a month, or it could be someone that you check in with once every 6 months or a year. But having those particular individuals to use as a soundboard, actually, at different moments within your career, but also, you might have more closer relationships with others. And then there's having coaches as well. And I've been really lucky to have great coaches and great mentors throughout my career. It's something that we do at MIFA as well. So we run an annual mentoring program. So I actually mentor through that program. I think it's also important that if you are a mentee, that eventually that you start passing on, that experience, but also paying it forward to others that are coming up within the industry and mentoring them. It's just passing on your knowledge, actually, but also holding that ladder down for the next generation of talent that are coming up as well. Yeah.
Love that. So the personal board of directors, which I'm a huge fan of, and it was actually something I heard years ago through Brené Brown, who talks a lot about having this list of trusted advisors. Organizations, as you noted, Nikki, have a directors, board of directors. So we should really think about who are our board of directors, to your point, and who are we seeking advice from. And I always say to people, it doesn't necessarily have to be even people that right? It could just be people that you feel inspired by. So I always talk about Brené Brown, Oprah Winfrey, these incredible women who have battled against adversity and still shone in their areas of expertise, and using their advice and their referencing in their books and stuff is something that helps me in terms of board of directors. So it doesn't need to be people that you personally know. It could just be people who also inspire you. But I recommend everybody takes half an hour in their day and just notes down their own personal board that advises them. And I have people who advise me on finance, and people advise me on life stuff, people advise me on business things. It's really important that you have these groups, to your point, Nikki, to support our progression and who we are and what we do, and paying it forward as well. Incredibly important.
For sure.
Talking about people who have inspired you and stuff, when was the first time you said in your very first job you were the only person of color that you noticed anyway? But when was that first time that you saw someone like yourself in leadership? And what impact did that have on you when you did see someone?
So I was working at Fox Networks Group that got bought by 21st Century Fox, and my manager there was a South Asian Gujarati woman, and she advocated for me an incredible amount. She put me forward for different positions. She went out of her way to email the SVP, the VPs, etc. when I had worked on a project. She didn't have to do that. She did that. She went out of her way to advocate for me. And I'm really appreciative of that. And then inversely, I've also had a negative experience with a South Asian woman as well. So it really depends on the particular individual. I think having great leaders and having, working with senior leadership teams that lift you up and advocate for you in comparison to ones that don't, it really shows you what kind of leader that you want to be. So I'm grateful for all the opportunities and, the experiences that I've had, because now I know what kind of leader that I want to be and how I can show up for people in various different ways, whether that's if I'm managing them or, through community leadership role or, with my role in MIFA. I think the experiences are valuable.
Yeah, so interesting that you spoke about positive and negative experiences having people like us, right, lead in leadership. And we've spoken about this offline, haven't we, before, about this internal competition we have within the Asian culture. And we've all kind of been conditioned with it from being quite young, I would say, where you're being compared against, your own relatives and even next door neighbors and strangers you've never met, in terms of, look at ABC and look how great they're doing. Why have you not kind of got there? And even if your guardians and parents and carers aren't doing that, the community itself is very kind of competition-wise, very competitive with each other. Even when you go to functions and stuff, they'll always kind of start off with, my son, my daughter is XYZ, earning XYZ amount. What are your kids kind of doing? There's always this kind of internal competition. And I think it plays out in how we behave, right, in the workplace. And I hold my hands up 100%. When I was younger, in my early career, I actually really appreciated being the only one. I'm not going to lie, because I felt that I had made it, right? And I got there, and every time I saw another South Asian woman specifically, or even a man actually appear, it was a little bit like a bit like, oh, this is new, this is a bit different. And what I realized at the time, well, a bit later on actually, when I was really doing some unpicking and unlearning in my own development, was that it was this whole kind of scarcity mindset that we've been given.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Right? Same with women. It's like the only one of you can succeed and only one of you can be in this space, because that's all we've ever seen is one of us in the boardroom or in senior roles or in more prominent positions. So we have this mindset that there's only room for one of us. So this means that we kind of embrace this competition and competitive mindset, where we end up kind of being a little bit unkind and distant from our own communities and our own kind of culture and heritage folks, who understand that. And I know this because when we set up the ACN, the Asian Comms Network, and I spoke about this last week as well, we thought people would be quite open and embrace the community, like something good is kind of coming. But in fact, we would face resistance. And a few folks did come back to me and say, I'm not really interested in supporting because I've made it on my own. So, I don't think this needs to exist, or, we're segregating even more and polarizing even more. And I just found it quite interesting. And I know you've spoken about this openly as well. So has that been your experience as well, this kind of scarcity mindset, competitive, thing that has been forced upon us, I would say, as South Asian and East Asian folks?
100%. I've experienced it firsthand personally, but also through MIFA. We've been around since 2017, but really formalized in 2020. Now we've approached other organizations to potentially partner with, and again, it comes back to, not wanting to collaborate because they feel like they're the only ones in that space. And I do think it comes back to scarcity mindset. But with anything, there's space for everyone. And I understand, the perception of maybe having these networks, you're polarizing us from society even more. But actually, there's a need for them right now because people don't feel they belong. They don't feel like they're included. And, to those individuals that actually are resistant to joining anything like this or wanting to be even, they don't want to have anything to do with these particular organizations because they've made it themselves. I think that's really, I think we need to tackle that from a psychological perspective, like where does that come from? And, we've had this discussion within ACN. I think it's that feeling of working hard, building yourself up, but actually doing that yourself and not wanting anyone to share that space with you because you work so hard. That whole mentality of shut up, put up, work hard, and just block everything out. And then when you get to the top, you feel like, actually, I've done this on my own accord. No one's helped me, therefore, everyone else should do the same. And like, I get it. Like, some people have that perspective, and that's it's not wrong. That's just their perspective. But I just personally don't look at it from that perspective. I see it as if I'm going up the ranks, or I'm getting into leadership positions, or I'm opening doors, or people are opening doors for me, why not keep those doors open for others? Why not make it easier for others? It doesn't mean that they're going to work less hard, and it's just giving opportunity to everyone, because actually sometimes we have to make our own opportunities for ourselves because the doors aren't opening for ourselves. So if there is someone like-minded, or a person of color, etc., I think we should do our due diligence to make that happen.
Yeah, and it's not, I always say to folks that it isn't about people wanting opportunities that they're not qualified for.
Absolutely,
it's the opportunity to even apply for that role, letting them know that the role even exists is the starting point, right? This is what I always say about, there's this whole narrative going on in outside in the world right now. There's kind of hatred, I suppose, and I'm using that word intentionally, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how it's gone the other way, and it's too much now, and it should be about meritocracy. Now, nobody disagrees with that. People, in fact, the underrepresented and underestimated folks are probably more than qualified some of the opportunities that are given to them. So meritocracy is never an issue. But for that, it's about being given access and opportunities that
or an equal opportunity,
or an equitable one, right? That's sometimes, in certain parts and certain organizations, there's a tap on the shoulder, or I like this person because I get along with them, so let me give them a go. And it's about helping people understand the biases that might be showing up for them, and making sure that those equal opportunities are available for everyone who's qualified and experienced to apply for those jobs, or even in terms of experience.
Definitely.
Where is the lack of it? Why haven't they had the experience that they need to apply this opportunity? So what do we need to support them to get the experience that they need? Because they may not have had the networks or the family members or connections that the more privileged societies and cultures have, right? So
for sure,
I always say to folks, and this is what the conversation is, I get the frustration and the annoyance. Sometimes you feel that things are a little bit unfair, but it's never about giving. It's never, in my opinion, it's never about taking away. It's about making the table bigger. And that's, the ACN's kind of objective and our outcome is how do we make that table bigger for people. So just before we sign off, Nikki, because this conversation has been fascinating and I've loved having this chat with you. I want to go back to the TED Talk stuff, and I would love it if you could share, as somebody who's been involved in this network for a long time, any top tips or advice you could give to our communities and those who are listening on if they are interested in being a TED talker or a TEDx talker, what 2 or 3 things do you believe they should do to be when they apply for the spot?
I think having an online presence really helps. So if you're an expert in your field and you're speaking about things from a perspective that hasn't been spoken about already, that's really valuable. That's something that we look for as well. In terms of actually submitting your talk, depending on what the theme is. So we've had alternative paths previously, currently working on the harmony theme. But again, having an idea from even your lived experience, something that hasn't been spoken about, or a perspective that hasn't been considered, and also drawing on what's going on in the world right now. How does this relate to everyone? So trying to make your your message universal. Again, that will cut through as well. And then in terms of anyone that's considering it but thinks it's 15 to 17 minutes is too long, you can do it. It is difficult, but there's work that goes into it. There's you can find your own strategies on how to memorize and stuff, but just create your own soundboard or create your own your mini network to act and practice in front of them, present in front of them to through your reiterations, etc. But if you really want to do it, go for it, I'd say.
So basically, a unique topic that hasn't been covered elsewhere, so your own unique perspectives, a topic that is applicable to most people, so people can relate with it, and making sure that you have some sort of online presence or visibility, and building your network around you so you can practice and make sure that you have that kind of confidence within yourself when you step onto that red spot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. Love that. If people want to connect with you, Nikki, or find out more about MIFA and some of the work you do, where's the best place for them to do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always up for connecting, collaborating. We've also got a Media for All LinkedIn page as well. We're quite active on that. And yeah, if anyone is from a Black, Asian, or ethnic minority background working in media marketing comms, MIFA is a membership network. We're free to join, and our next mentoring program will take place in April, but we'll start recruiting for it in February next year.
Amazing. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for your time, this conversation, and all your insight that you've shared with me and our community that is listening as well. We will be back next week for another session of Real Talk and Real Stories. Thank you for watching us live or watching the replay. If you are interested in joining the Asian Comms Network, we're going to share all the details in the comments so you can find out more. If you want to partner with us as well, you want to be one of our corporate partners or an ally, then please email hello@asiancommsnetwork.com. And we will see you next week. Take care of yourselves.
Lovely. Thank you, Advita. Bye-bye.
Bye.